In our culture innovation, there are 4 key pillars, which I'll go through relatively quickly. And the whole message here is a great innovative culture in any organization, small or large, really has a number of different components combined. It's not necessarily one silver bullet that does the job. You've got to think about how your teams are hired and put together. You've got to think about the processes and the mechanisms they use. You've got to think about how you structure those teams and what sort of control you give them. And then you've got to think of the architecture and the tools that you give them to go and do their roles. And so that's really what I'll just run through that now quickly. So first off, how are we hiring people, right? I mean, one really important part of our organization are these leadership principles. Now, most organizations have values or principles that they live by. We have quite a lot of them now, as you can see. And these have really evolved over time to reflect the kind of company that we want, to reflect the people that we want to bring into the business. A really great lesson I'd love you to learn is to think very carefully about your values and principles. Make sure they are action-oriented. These are what we call the attributes of a builder or an entrepreneurial type person. Make them very much usable in conversation. Make them applicable to give you directions, to give you points of reference. But really powerfully at Amazon, we use these to hire people. These are how we measure new recruits to Amazon. So we know that when we get people into the business, they've already given us stories and data points of how they've displayed this behavior in the past. And that means that when they come into the business, they're already ready to help us live and grow this culture over time. So I really encourage you to use these quite forcefully and would love to see your stories and your examples of principles that you've done as well. As I said, these have evolved over time. They started, I think, 6 or 10 of them. They went to 15, when it's back to 14. You can read the headlines there, right? I mean, I'll go through a couple of them, and we've even actually just recently added 2 more in the last couple of weeks. This is more reflective of our current moment in time, of the size of our business. But these principles were all developed in, again, the late 90s when we were maybe 100 people, a couple of 100 people. And really, it was an idea of saying, what do we want our company to look like when we're working together? And luckily, they've mostly stood the test of time, which is a great reflection on the process here. They're extremely carefully worded. They're extremely selective. They're absolutely scrutinized, but they're supposed to be easy to understand and interpret. I'll take you through a couple of these in a bit of detail. So invent and simplify is one I like. We don't want to invent and complicate, right? We don't want to bolt things on or make things harder for ourselves or for our customers. But we want to think of ideas that we think will just simply cut through a lot to really bring value to our customers. And sometimes we want to build ideas that are more relevant for the future than they are today. We want to build, if we're patient about the long term, we want to build a business that is really more relevant in 10 years' time as much as it is now. And that means we may be misunderstood for long periods of time about the ideas we have. A great example of that is Kindle. Hopefully some of you are Kindle users. And when we first brought out Kindle, we were really criticized heavily for launching a product that was thought to undercut our core business. But we knew that customers will want to use this device over time. They love streaming content more and more every day. And that it was a really complementary experience to the book business that we had with Amazon.com. So we knew it was a great idea. We knew that it was coming forward anyway. We knew the idea of downloading a book anywhere in the world in 60 seconds would be really valuable. And that was an offering that we thought was going to help customers out a lot. So a lot of criticism at the time, but now hopefully has proven to be a good move. And even now we have these bookstores that are like Amazon.com in physical form, right? The bookstore's laid out like the website, and all the books in each store is unique to that local area based on Amazon.com numbers. And even when we launched Amazon Web Services itself, we were heavily criticized, saying, why would an e-commerce store become a technology vendor? But we knew that if we could solve our own problem in a meaningful way, perhaps it would be meaningful for other customers and other businesses as well, like yours. In fact, we actually tested AWS out on a couple of small businesses right from the start. You know, would this help you improve your business? Does it make you more agile and flexible? Does it help you grow your business over time? Another one I like is bias for action. We don't need extensive study to make good decisions. As big as Amazon is as a business, we still need 70, 80% or so of information to make good decisions. We just want to put speed over the top of anything else. We want to move very quickly towards making great products and services and experience for customers. And we know that if we get the right signals, we're on the right track. And that'll come with some failure and some risk, but we value that calculated risk taking. We reduce ideas down to what we call 2A doors, which is to say, I've got a great idea for something, it's potentially very large, or it's potentially going to transform our business in some way. But how can we test that in a really small, quick, easy way? We call them 2A doors, which is a door you can go through, test an idea out, and a metaphorical door you can come back having not spent a lot of time and effort, just run an experiment to test a broader idea. So for example, rather than opening a new warehouse in a particular market and starting to pour concrete, steel, and get it all set up, we'll test the market out, maybe with a pop-up warehouse of some sort, understand all the challenges that brings, see if the distribution and the local area sales commensurate with our idea, and just create a little version of our bigger plan and see if it makes sense in a two-way door scenario. The last one I'll talk about is good leaders are right a lot. I think this is really important. I'd love to hear from you about your views on this one. So leaders are right a lot. They have strong judgment and good instincts. We think that's probably what a good leader should have. But at Amazon, we deliberately add that we think good leaders should seek diverse perspectives. All the people in your teams and your company have great experience that you've gone to the trouble of hiring, and you should listen to those inputs, right? Listen to those different perspectives and then work to disconfirm their beliefs. That means ask why your idea or your way of thinking could be challenged or could be improved. How can you change your mind to make a better decision? And at Amazon, we use written documents to do that quite often, right? We try and remove ourselves from content, from ideas, from narratives, from plans. And we say, is this a great idea? I'm writing out this idea. There's no PowerPoint presentation. There's no persuasive messenger, right? The document and the idea and the evidence of the idea has to survive on its own 2 feet. I really love you to experiment with those written documents as a way to communicate. And the written document, the written narratives there don't have things like dot points or charts. It's got to be a start, middle, and end without someone there reading it out loud to you. It's going to be a standalone idea that's going to have a lot of power and meaning. The second of these pillars is mechanisms. And so this is not necessarily a waterfall process. It's more of a suggested way of working that anyone at Amazon could pick up and run with. And again, we're putting speed over anything else here. The idea is myself or Bill or Dinesh will have a great idea. I've got to have the tools at my own disposal to go and test that myself. I don't have to go to a specific internal team or an external agency of some sort. What are the ways that I can go and test and build a solution that might help me solve this problem? An input would be a customer complaint or a problem I'm experiencing. The output that we think is a great customer experience we want to develop. In the middle is a bunch of tools that I can use myself and try out. A good example of that is how we design new solutions for customers. We say we always start with the customer and work backwards. It's in our first leadership principle, so it's very much ingrained in our DNA. And this is the way we adapt design thinking to our company, right? We want to really make great ideas that are built out of customer needs and problems. And we use working backwards to invent new customer experiences, right? We want to try and think of ways to really think of something new that hasn't been done before. And a great example of that is Amazon Go, which I'll take you through in a moment. The working backwards process answers these 5 critical questions. Now, what I think you'll probably notice here is there's no questions here about what technology we're going to use, what are our competitors doing, and most critically, at this moment, when we're thinking of ideas for our customers, there's no questions here about ROI or business benefit to us. Right? At this moment, we're just trying to solve that key customer problem and leave the viability and the feasibility to the next stage. It'll come down the road. But if we can't build that really meaningful customer benefit into our product solutions, then we know that customers won't love what they're using with us. They won't use it again. They'll find it better from someone else. It's our job, if we're customer-centric, to solve their problems in the most important and powerful way. So I talked about Amazon Go. This is really reflective of our sort of somewhat scrappy nature. It really evolved over time with these basic looking mock-ups and prototypes. And the whole concept of Amazon Go is you can essentially tap your phone on the gantry there. The store now knows you're in the store. It's tracking what you're taking off the shelves, and you can just walk out. There's no cashier here that is needed because the store knows what you picked up and put in your bag. The software is called Just Walk Out technology, as it sounds, right? So we've just thought, what's the amazing idea we've got? Let's prototype and test and learn, and let's solve those 5 questions. And what's the biggest benefit we can bring customers through an interesting solution like this? So we don't know exactly how it's going to work or what the business case is, but it's a fantastic customer experience that we wanted to bring to life. And we do that through things like typical workshops. We have working backwards workshops that my team facilitates with customers like you, where we put you through the process that we've used to develop things like Amazon Go. We have ideation techniques that really ask you to explore both the very obvious things that are on your mind to help solve a customer problem, but also have what we call dangerous ideas. The questions we ask there is, What's an idea that would disrupt your own business, right? Like Kindle. What's an idea that would get you fired by your boss? What's an idea that if we did this, that no one would have ever thought of it before? And again, we will be misunderstood today about what a great idea is in the future. It makes us think about the future a lot more. So we have a whole range of different ideation techniques for that. And the process of working backwards goes across, a very quick time frame of really moving towards prototyping as fast as possible. The point of a working backwards process is to get ourselves a prototype we can put in our hands and test something and get some metrics about what an idea is and how valid it is. So when you've got a great idea, be stubborn on the vision of that idea. Right? Amazon Go, we could easily have watered that down to be self-checkout or to be something different. But we thought, we're going to stick to this because we know it's the future over time. We know that that durable need is that customers don't want to queue up and pay at a cashier. It's annoying, it slows them down. And the technology was catching up to try and solve that problem. But we're flexible in the details of how we start. We'll do terrible drawings and basic looking prototypes and crappy mock-ups if it gets us towards that answer quickly. And with that comes some failure, right? Jeff has very famously quoted that we'll have our first $1 billion failure at some point. We launched a phone that didn't work. We've launched lots of things that didn't work. But until we put them in market, sometimes we don't know how well they'll do. The last couple, very quickly. So one is organization. So how do we organize small empowered teams? We put them into what we call 2 pizza teams. So if we've got a great idea with a press release from the working backwards process, we'll create a 2 pizza team, which is essentially a team that's big enough to be fed by 2 pizzas, and more like a startup than a cross-functional agile team. They're given ownership and autonomy of what they build. They're asked to solve the problem and bring the working backwards idea to life. And they often own and run what they build. So the person that invented Amazon Go, she ran the whole store chain. She built the first store, ran the whole store chain for about 10 years. So she was essentially the CEO of a small internal startup at Amazon, and she was given ownership and autonomy to run the business as she liked. And even Alexa started as a small 2 pizza team with just one small idea. It's now an extremely large platform. And we need to be making big, noticeable failures. It's not about embarrassing ourselves, in front of the world. It's about having the courage to see if we can make something go big and to launch something into market that might work, right? And we can take the failure at Amazon because the number of winners pays for those dozens and hundreds of failures over time. And it's just reflective of our think big mentality to try and invent new ideas. Last piece before I hand over to Bill. So really the architecture is another word for having all this technology that's available to around us, to really think of it less as the thing we use and build all the time, to the tools that we can use to enable big ideas to come to life, right? So think of the AWS stack of services and even just innovation techniques and this culture of innovation as more like a kitchen of ingredients and tools that are at arm's length for you to use at your disposal. They should be ready to go as soon as you want. You should create that internally in your team, that you're a fully stacked kitchen that's ready to innovate at a moment's notice, to get an idea out of your brain and in front of customers as fast as possible to test that idea. So there are 4 pillars of innovation. There's lots and lots more stories behind this. Very welcome any comments or questions that we can support you with. Would love to summarize this initial presentation here in these 4 sayings. Think about customers, start with the customer, work backwards, have a great idea and don't let it go. Don't water it down or make it easier, make it hard, because you can then run experiments at speed and make decisions with data.